Hello, I am Zero Budget Geek, and welcome to this Sentinels of the Multiverse hero guide for Absolute Zero. Absolute Zero is an advanced character that is not really recommended for newer players. In this guide, I'm going to take a look at the cards and some of the strategies for this character. So if we take a look at his base power, it is thermodynamics, which lets Absolute Zero deal himself 1 fire damage or 1 cold damage. Now, why would you want to be doing that? Well, his specialty is taking that damage and transforming it either into the opposite type or causing various effects with it. Two of his most important cards I'm going to highlight first. The first card that's most important is his isothermic transducer. With this card, anytime Absolute Zero takes fire damage, he will be able to deal a cold damage to an enemy target. So you want to get this card out in play as soon as possible so you can start doing damage. But you got to keep an eye on your hit points because you are taking damage as you're dealing damage. The second most important card for Absolute Zero is his no point calibration unit. With this card in play, anytime Absolute Zero takes cold damage, he would negate that damage and instead regain that many hit points. Once you have both those cards in play, I call that putting on your armor. Pretty much Absolute Zero is ready to go. All his other cards are going to work along with that. The third, probably most important card for Absolute Zero is his focused apertures, which increases the cold damage that he deals by 1. So as you can see, if once he has his isothermic transducer in play, he deals himself 1 fire damage, he's gonna do cold damage that's outgoing, but with those focused apertures he'll increase that by 1. So he'll take 1 point of damage but deal 2, which is really good. Let's take a look at the rest of his cards. So we have Cold Snap here, which is a very good ongoing card that once he plays it'll stay in play. It's limited for a reason. At the start of Absolute Zero's turn, he'll deal each non-hero target 1 cold damage that will get enhanced by his focus aperture, so that can deal a bunch of automatic damage very quickly. Next card we got here is Coolant Blast, one of his other attack cards, where he'll be able to deal damage to enemies depending on how much fire damage he's taken before. So this card here takes a little bit of a setup to use properly, but once you have it set up, then you'll be doing some good consistent damage. Here we have his cryo chamber. Now this card, you really only want to use it when you're been dealing a lot of damage or been taking a lot of damage and you're kind of low on health. What will happen is you'll increase the damage that Absolute Zero receives, cold damage that he receives, and reduce the fire damage he receives. So basically what you want to do is play this card and start healing yourself for a bunch of health. Once you've gotten your health to a good amount, then you can use the power on this card to destroy this card and deal Absolute Zero 5 fire damage, which if you have your transducer in play, you'll be able to transform that into cold damage. So that that cryo chamber is sort of a defensive card, but you can flip it over and go on the offense. We already talked about the focused apertures. Frostbound Drain is one of his many one-shots where he'll be able to spread out the different kinds of damage, cold and fire damage. And believe it or not, it doesn't sound like it, but those few points of damage on that card can really rack up to a lot once you have his armor in play. Field Freeze is his only card that he has to deal with ongoing cards, but it's great because in one shot lets him destroy up to 3 ongoing cards, and he'll be able to do damage based on how many of those that he destroyed. So pretty neat card. Doesn't come up into play very often because usually the other heroes are able to take care of ongoing cards, but at least he has an answer for those. Glacial Structure is probably his least used card because it takes a whole turn basically to use this card, because you have to waste your card play to put this into play, and then you got to use your 1 power for the turn to activate it. But it's not that bad. It's gonna draw you 3 cards and then you destroy this card, so it's essentially a one-shot. Just uses up your turn. Really, this is only good maybe at the beginning of the game when you don't have many cards. Absolute Zero does take some time to build up, so anything that will let him get to more cards quicker is always beneficial. We have his horrifying here, which again just allows him to do a bunch of cold and fire damage to several different targets. Some of those, could be him for some healing. Impale, one of my personal favorite cards. You place this card on a target and it'll do that target ongoing damage every single turn. I usually like to put this on the main villain and just let him just keep taking damage turn after turn. This will also get improved by the focus apertures. We talked about his transducer, modular realignment, very great card. One of Absolute Zero's weaknesses is when villains or environments destroy his equipments that he puts into play. This card here will allow him to get that back, and he'll be able to do some fire and cold damage to himself, healing or dealing damage, as depending on what you have in play. We talked about his calibration unit there, his onboard module installation. So this card here is so much better than the glacial structure card. This card here is gonna help you get to your armor so much faster, because that's all it lets you search for. It's going to let you search for module cards, which is your armor cards. And so this card here will let you draw cards, search for a module you need, and then play a card. This card is even useful to play even if you already have the module cards in your hand. It's good to have extras, or just to draw more cards and get through your deck. Absolute Zero wants to get through his deck as quick as possible. Let's see. Then we have a Subzero Atmosphere, very good, probably his best team card here. When you play this card, any villain cards that would normally act at the end of the turn act at the start of the villain turn, and essentially this just basically slows them down for an entire turn, because most villain cards act at the end of the turn. You have to be careful though, because some villain cards act at the start of the turn, and if after they've acted something makes this card go away, they'll also get their end of turn attack. So you could accidentally make some cards hit you twice, but that's a very rare occasion. And his last card here is his Thermal Shockwave, probably one of his best attack cards. Absolute Zero will be able to deal 3 targets 1 cold damage, and then he deals himself fire damage depending on how much cold damage he dealt out. Now some of that cold damage can be redirected to himself for some healing. So very versatile card, can do a lot for you. So that's his cards there. If you want to play a character that requires a lot more thought, Absolute Zero is definitely there. Like I said, he's slow to build and is heavily reliant on equipment. And he's going to be doing a lot of damage at the cost of his hit point, but so those are things to take into consideration. He is excellent against villains or environments that deal cold or fire damage, because he'll be able to deal damage from that or heal from it respectively. Again, his weaknesses are his reliance on equipment, his reliance on damage types. He really hates it when cards change his damage type, so you want to be careful of that. Big weakness of Absolute Zero is also he cannot remove environment cards. He's going to rely on his teammates for that. And again, he's for him to be useful in dealing damage, he's going to be taking a lot of damage, so you have to keep an eye on his hit points. And the best way he works with a team, or the best way his teammates can help him, is by giving him damage buff. So paired together with a card like Legacy, a hero like Legacy, who increases his damage, will just make him deal enormous amounts of damage. Or someone like Ra, who does fire damage. Ra can deal that fire damage to him, and then Absolute Zero will be able to transform that damage into cold damage and enhance it even further. So he can be a good teamwork guy, but sometimes he feels a little bit like a lone wolf. But definitely a solid addition to the team, as long as you don't mind the slow build up. So thank you for watching this video. Click on the annotations to see more hero guides, and if you want to see this character in action, check the links to watch videos where I play through various scenarios with this character. Again, thank you for watching and have a great day.